First thing to say here is that I am aware that there is a sort of mild buzzing noise in the background. There is a slight crack at the bottom of my laptop, and that may be having a factor. I've covered it in sellotape to try and minimize that. When I upload a video, I play it back, and if I can't hear something, if it's not something I would watch, I will delete it and start again. So I always test the camera when I upload a video. But I do apologize if the buzzing is very distracting. I hope it's not. What I played back, it's a little bit obvious, but it's not. I can still hear myself, so I'm just hopefully assuming that people can hear what I hear. Because honestly, I'm not quite sure what to do about it. It's what I've got to work with, and I don't want these issues to blow over. I mean, I feel I have to talk about these things now. Now, when it comes to Donald Trump, it's a situation whereby if you don't talk about it at the time, then it moves on to yet another story. I mean, today, for example, it's Donald Trump's birthday. It's his 79th birthday. And there's a lot of discussion about this military rally or parade he's having in honor of his birthday at the weekend. Oh, it's the weekend. And there's signs across the United States saying no King's Day. Unfortunately, there was also violence today in Minnesota. Um, a Democratic lawmaker was shot dead along with her husband, and two others were injured, I believe. That sort of political violence is never a good sign anywhere. I want to talk about the situation in Los Angeles, and it may be hopefully calming down now, but I certainly think the issues are still going to be relevant. Um, if I could make a long title on this video, I would add to the title, I would say Trump is a hypocrite on Los Angeles. I believe he is. I would also add the Democrats are also wrong when it comes to law and order, and I'll explain why I believe that to be the case. Also, I've been very vocal about what's happening in Northern Ireland. I've also said that I am consistent when it comes to violence. Any protester who sets fire to cars doesn't deserve to be treated as a protester. If you're setting fire to someone else's vehicle, that's a criminal act. If you're covering your face, I can only think of one reason why you're doing that, with the exception of totalitarian states like China or Russia. If you're covering your face in the United States at protests, I have a dim view of that. Because to me, that suggests that you're going out looking for trouble and you don't want to be identified. So I do have a dim view of that. And another point about the protests, I've noticed a lot of Mexican flags being waved. It's not really the best way to say, to speak about the tyranny of Donald Trump and to, it's sort of a paradox because this is all around the issue of immigration and Donald Trump's authority. And, there's issues with both of those things. But if your whole argument is to stay in the United States, I don't think it's a very compelling argument to be waving the flag of another country. You know, if the protesters were waving American flags, it would sort of give more weight to the argument that they want to stay in the United States, or at least wave American flags with Mexican flags. But by waving the Mexican flags, it's sort of showing it's a Mexican nationalist thing. Like we're proud Mexicans. I think that's misguided at best. But Donald Trump is an utter hypocrite. So how's this all blowing it up? Well, I think that it's fair to say that the way ICE has approached the situation has been heavy-handed because the people that they're arresting, you could argue it's just a legal thing based on Donald Trump's promises to his voters, but we're not talking about violent MS-13 gang members. We're talking about cleaners. We're talking about gardeners, people who've been in the US for years. Um, and I think it has been heavy-handed. There's also a very controversial area regarding Trump overriding Gavin Newsom's authority by sending in the state National Guard, ordering them to go in. As I understand it, the last time this happened, i.e., the last time a president overrode a state governor, was back in the civil rights era. I think it was President Johnson overriding one of the southern governors. I'd have to double check that one, but um, you know, that's how long it's been. Um, so it's no small thing for a president to override a state governor. Um, I do think the Democrats shouldn't, pontificate too much on this. I mean, Gavin Newsom, if he runs for president in the 2028 Democrat ticket, his record in law and order is definitely going to come up. And I have no doubt that what Donald Trump is doing is exploiting California, using California as a sort of template. I think Donald Trump cannot stand California. Despite what he claims, I think he cannot stand Gavin Newsom. I mean, one of the most obnoxious things about Trump is how utterly insincere he is. In one tweet, he'll say he likes Newsom, and in another tweet, he's vilifying Newsom. However, Gavin Newsom doesn't escape blame. He is the governor of California, and on his watch, the homeless problem has got no better. Crime is still a major problem. Um, Sanctuary cities have high crime rates. That's just a reality. So the Democrats need to address this. If I were a Democratic lawmaker in California, I would criticize Trump, but I would also criticize those so-called protesters who are setting fire to cars. That's not protest. That's criminality. And I think a mistake that too many Democrats make is playing to the populist theatre of their side. It's no better than Trump playing to his own populist theatre. I mean, is it so much to ask for a politician who will just be responsible and condemn presidential overreach, condemn abuse of power, but also condemn blatant criminality? I'm not saying that Newsom and Bass haven't condemned it. They've said they've got the situation under control. The thing about this situation is, I think Trump is wrong to send in the National Guard, but I also think that, unfortunately, he's going to win in the court of public opinion because a lot of other Americans will just look at California being California and sort of see it as the Democrats have least sanctuary cities and they're soft on crime. Having said that, I say Donald Trump is a massive hypocrite. He didn't have any compunction about, he didn't have any sort of notion of using the National Guard to rein in on the violent insurrectionists on the 6th of January 2021. Now, remember, he was still president at that time. He'd done nothing. Not only did he do nothing against them, he actively encouraged them. That's why I think Donald Trump is such a hypocrite on law and order. This is the president who pardoned violent insurrectionists. He called them great patriots. So we have a president here who is playing a dangerous partisan game. If the violent criminality is in favor of him, he will defend it. And if it's against one of his policies or perceived to be in support of the Democrats or what have you, something that Donald Trump doesn't like, then he'll criticize it. A good president will be consistent. Donald Trump's a terrible president. I do think the Democrats need to be careful not to play into his hands. And the way they do that is by unequivocally condemning the violence. Now, Newsom said the situation was under control. Um, I think the LAPD has a pretty bad reputation and with good reason. Um, but, when you see a journalist, an Australian journalist, in shot in the leg, I watched that video. She wasn't in any way getting mixed up with the violence. No reasonable police officer would have mistaken her for a rioter. And he shot her point blank on the leg, seriously injuring her. Rubber bullets are not harmless. Um, so I think the officer responsible has to be held to account for that. It's a disgrace that in the United States of America, journalists have their safety being risked for simply covering a news event. Now, it would be hyperbole to say America is in the situation as portrayed in Alex Garland's Civil War, but some pretty bad stuff going on. Politicians getting shot, a president abusing his executive authority to override a governor, violence on the streets. It's a bad, bad situation. I think ICE is heavy handed. I have absolutely no problem with MS-13 gang members being deported from the United States. They should be. They are dangerous criminal thugs and they should be deported. I just don't believe that Donald Trump is sincere about this because if he was, he would have recognized that those who were rioting on January the 6th were not good patriots they were violent extremists. But because they supported him, he called them good patriots. So this is a president who will cherry pick what sort of violence he's going to condemn and support. And that is a very serious problem. But like I say, the Democrats aren't squeaky clean either. I do think, rightly or wrongly, their perception is that they're soft on crime. The perception is that. And I think Trump will play to that. He will say, oh, look at California. Look at the job Newsom's done. And you have people waving Mexican flags, covering their faces and burning cars. That's how Trump's going to portray it. And that, that is what's happening. Um, I think it's legitimate to protest against heavy-handed immigration enforcement. I think it's legitimate to express concerns about that. And I think it's absolutely legitimate for those protesters and California legislators to condemn Trump's overreach. More, Trump so often inflames the problem rather than makes it better. It's like the plane crash in the Potomac earlier this year. Rather than waiting for an investigation, Trump was immediately jumping to blame people. Um, so I think he's a disaster. And from what I've heard, these ICE raids are heavy-handed. But burning cars and covering your face isn't going to get much sympathy from me. Um, so I think the Democrats need to be very clear that they don't support that sort of behavior. The LAPD, uh, they need to do what they do as a law enforcement agency and maintain law and order, but you don't do that by firing at journalists or by overreach. So it has to be proportionate. But as so with so many things, Trump makes the situation much worse. It's like the situation right now between Israel and Iran. Trump spouting off about there's going to be more slaughter to come. Now, when it comes to Israel and Iran, I'm no fan of either government. But once again, Donald Trump is inflaming a situation more than helping it by those sort of statements. So that's my take on the Los Angeles situation. My girlfriend happens to be there right now. LA is a big city. I'm not overtly worried because it is a big city, and the violence seems to have been in downtown and Paramount. But I've suggested that you stay away from that area at least for a while, just because you know it's violent at the moment. No one has been killed. I don't think it's on the scale of the 1992 riots, but it's bad enough. And once again, the City of Angels burns. LA's really been in the news this year. The wildfires in January and now this. I think you have to go back to the mid 90s when Los Angeles has been so much in the news in one year. Anyway, I'll wrap this up, but that's how I see it. Donald Trump is a rank hypocrite, and it is right that his abuse of power is challenged. But the Democrats need to condemn rioting. You know, I don't care what the cause is, setting cars on fire um, is not legitimate protest. It's just not.